Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss our next topic, which is Neoclassicism. But before that, let's have a look at the previous year questions that have been asked from this topic. Discipline in Neoclassical literature, social and literary both, salient features of Neoclassical poetry, revival of classical spirit in neoclassical poetry. So, the themes identified from the previous year questions are features and elaboration with examples. So, let's begin with neoclassicism. The term neo means new, and classical means ally of ancient Roman and Greek classics. Neoclassicism is the name given to the time duration between 1660 to 1788, the time when social order was undergoing tremendous changes. It was an enlightened period wherein socialism was more emphasized rather than individualism as against Elizabethan era. Now social needs were given more attention as compared to natural passions and individual needs. So, this was the age of reason and prose. Now, characteristics of neoclassicism include first and foremost the imitation of classics and discipline. So, the ancient Greek and Roman writings and literature were considered as the epitome of pure and most perfected literature, unlike Renaissance period, where inspiration led to the production of new writings. In Neoclassicism, however, traditional and strict appearances to classical models were chosen by writers as they were considered the models of perfection and excellence. Example of neoclassical writers are Dryden, Pope, Jonathan Swift, and Ben Jonson. Neoclassical writers considered man to be a limited being with limited powers, unlike Renaissance, where man had taken to be of infinite potential. The literature produced had easy language, single plot line, and strictly limited to the time and place of creation. New words were also added in the vocabulary, and grammar was also changed to an extent. Neoclassical era was dominated by materialism and empirical science, which led to the narrow vision of man as well as limited writings to affairs and manners of men and politics. Morals became chief concern, and the view of life was practical rather than utopian. Nature, like every era, also found its place in the writing, but nature here did not mean the forest or natural nature, but general human nature as per the standards fixated by ideals or standards as per Homer and Horace. The literary forms consisted of essays, which became popular, drama declined, and novel started its beginnings in genres which were comic and satire. There was no tragedy in this particular period. This age was also referred to as Age of Reason because the said rules were clearly followed, and this was the time of careful moral appearances in a way that appearances were preferred over honesty. Example: Paradise Lost by John Milton and Gulliver's Travel by Jonathan Swift. Neoclassical age was the age of prose and reason. The production of prose was more than poetry. It was due to industrial revolution and scientific discoveries. There was an increase in literacy in working class. Libraries started attracting more upper class men and few literate women. Circulating libraries were becoming common for all, which paved the way for women and men to satisfy book reading without much expense. Reason, good sense, wit, logic, satire, and realism was found in fair amount in neoclassical prose. Unlike Elizabethan age, which led to the balance between romanticism, imagination, and realism. The critique of neoclassical age were Samuel Johnson and John Dryden. Now, let's talk about neoclassical drama. So, drama steadily declined during neoclassical age. Only a few dramatists like Goldsmith and Alexander Pope produced some remarkable dramas. The reason for decline in drama were rise of novels, which became true representative of the contemporary England and free from most conventions. It depicted life, manners, and ideas in better ways without any pressure of making it grand or performative. Second, people became more interested in performances of actors and actresses rather than the quality of plays, which kind of lowered the prestige of drama writers and playwriters. Revival of old plays popularized, which hindered the creation of new plays as people were more interested in theatrical performances of the already hit plays. Neoclassical age also saw the decline in support from the monarch of the literature. Therefore, it became tough to influence public's opinion and interest. There were also several more restraints that restricted the creative freedom of the writers to present rude or offensive but real scenes. So, most of the writers could not express themselves freely and hence could not produce dramas with full creative freedom. There were also political restraints like introduction of the Licensing Act of 1773 AD, which led to the censorship of writings. However, the characteristics of neoclassical drama include sentimental comedy, which was reaction against comedy of manners, lacking spirit, humor, sadness, sympathy, pathos, which is humorous situation in pathetic situations of teaching morals to the public. The purpose of drama shifted from entertainment to moral schooling. Heroic dramas and tragedies were still being produced as struggle between love and honor between the hero heroines was the most popular genre that still attracted public attention. Finally, let's discuss poetry in neoclassical age. The poetry became rational and intelligent, unlike Renaissance, where emotions and sentiment overpowered reason and intellect. Poetry was not based on free play of imagination but upon intellectual aspects. Because of increased literacy, poets were highly educated and well versed about religion, Bible, literature, and therefore they tried to imitate ways of perfected literature and strict adherence to classical rules set by ancient Greek and Roman classics by Virgil, Homer, Horace. Because of this reason, neoclassical poetry was also known as pseudo-classical poetry. The poets also rebelled against romantic nature of poetry and loved to compose poetry just for the sake of composing it as a thing a gentleman would do to emphasize on morals. Example, John Keats. Another feature of neoclassical poets was realism. No word of imagination and sentiment, but hard and harsh realities of society were presented in their true pictures, along with extreme pragmatism. Example, Alexander Pope and Dryden. The hallmark of neoclassical poetry includes heroic couplets, which consist of rhyming of pentameter line with each other. Example, to err is human, to forgive divine, which is a line by Alexander Pope. These complex couplets were first employed by Chaucer and then by Dryden and Pope. Another characteristic of neoclassical poetry is mock epic, which is a satirical and heroic style epic about trivial subject, which is not worthy of writing. Example from includes The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope. The mock epic is about forceful taking away of hair, which leads to a war between two aristocratic families. Neoclassical poets were against subjectivity in poetry and against imagination and feelings. They emphasized more on harsh problems, miseries, and passions, and criticized poets who wrote about passion, feelings, and emotions. Therefore, very few lyrics were written during the age of Pope and Dryden. The diction used for poetry was restrained, concrete, and rigid, unlike the flexibility that was present during Renaissance. Example of neoclassical poets include Alexander Pope, who had a command of heroic couplet, and John Dryden. This was everything about neoclassicism. In the next video, we shall be discussing a new topic, so stay tuned.